والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وصل على المؤمنين والمؤمنات وعلى المسلمين والمسلمات الحمد لله. His great mercy and blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we continue to make a progress on Ilm al-Quran. Yesterday I was mentioning about we have a program for Ta'lim al-Quran, Tahfiz al-Quran, Tafsir al-Quran, and this will be more like a Tafhim al-Quran, inshallah. So let me give you a little background about Brother Mufty Yusuf ibn Yaqub. And this is the background that he sent me a week ago. And this program, inshallah, will continue. Every Saturday, we encourage that all younger children and adults, they should really come on time at 12 o'clock. The program begins at 12. We apologize for the delay today because we're waiting for students to come in. Mufti Sahab was already here, actually, about 11:45, so he was ahead of time. So from in future, I think we should make sure that everybody comes on time. Let me give you his little bit of history so that everybody knows it. Sisters are upstairs. We will also make in future, try to make arrangements so we all can sit on the same floor with the partition here. So we have a direct contact with the instructor. Mufti Yusuf ibn Yaqub was born in Kabul, Afghanistan. And after the invasion of communist Russia in 1979, he and his family immigrated for the preservation of their religion and lives to Germany for 2 years, and then to the United States in 1982. Mufti Yusuf has since been living in Northern Virginia. He attended public school, receiving a diploma in 1995, and then college for 2 years at Northern Virginia Community College, simultaneously commencing studies in Arabic language and Islamic jurisprudence for 3 years. So he studied Islamic studies right here in the United States. Thereafter, at the behest of Mufti Ibrahim Desai, he departed for South Africa to further Islamic education at Madrasa in Amia. Initially, he completed a religious 6 years Islamic sciences course comprised of education in the fields of Arabic syntax, morphology, jurisprudence, his foundation principles, Islamic creed, Quran translation, and 6 authentic ahadiths. After graduating with honors and receiving a Shahada in Amia, Mufti Yusuf continued his postgraduate studies by specializing in Hanafi jurisprudence and his principal under Mufti Ibrahim Desai, receiving the required izaja to issue fatwas. After completing his studies abroad, Mufti Yusuf returned home to spread the knowledge which he gained throughout his academic journey. He has since co-founded an institution of higher Islamic science in Northern Virginia by the name of Madinatul Ulum, which offers the same high level of Islamic scholarship once only found abroad. Mufti Yusuf currently heads the Darul Ifta, Office of Islamic Jurisprudence, and he is the head instructor at Madinatul Ulum. So we welcome, inshallah, and we expect that the strength of the both student and the interest in the community will grow. More and more people will participate, so we can continue to expand the program with reference to the Quran.
والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. As has been mentioned, inshallah, we wanted to commence some formal lessons, some formal durus in regards to understanding the Holy Quran. The title I've been given to the class, Fahm al-Quran or Tafhim al-Quran, yani understanding the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is no small task. Every person seated here, even on the sister side, on the brother side, should make the utmost shukr and hamd to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for being allowed to sit in such a majlis, in such a gathering. In our eyes, sometimes we do such acts that seem maybe insignificant to our eyes, but that's because we don't understand the importance and the value of it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all the Anbiya in Islam, the Malaika, they understand the importance of this. So in the initial couple of minutes, just to get us a brief understanding that how important these halaqat and these classes are, I wanted to present before you certain hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so that it will increase our enthusiasm and our shauq to study even further. And also, we may relate these on to others, to our family, to our friends, that on a Saturday morning, mashallah, there might be a 50% off deal at some store, or you might be sleeping an extra hour, or there might be some television show on. What benefit is a person really going to get from that? This is what Rasulullah has said about these halaqat of ilm. Come, and in essence, you're going to become a da'i towards khayr. The very first hadith Rasulullah has mentioned that we should ponder on, Rasulullah has mentioned that khayrukum man ta'allama al-Qur'ana wa 'allamahu. Translation, Rasulullah said that the best of you, the best of the ummah of Rasulullah are those who learn Quran, who take out time to learn and understand the Quran and teach the Quran. That on the face of the planet, there can be nobody better than you at this moment in time. So by you have coming here to sit down to start understanding what the Kalam of Allah is, already you have started the path towards khayriyat. But a person has to have yaqeen, a person has to have firm certainty in the words of Rasulullah. What does it mean to be the best? Switch mics. So what does it mean to be the best of the ummah, or khayrukum, right? In this day and age, or at this time, the students of deen, the person who actually takes out time, a person could have done anything, but he is making that sacrifice, he is spending his wealth, he is spending his time, for what other reason than to learn what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made incumbent upon him, to learn that message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set down. There's one famous mufassir, and a famous alim, Abu Hadith, the name is Mujahid, rahimahullah. Adding to this, he makes one statement that he says that Ahabul Khalqi ilallahi ta'ala a'lahum bima anzala. That the most beloved of creation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are those people who are the most knowledgeable in that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to mankind. You take out time to learn what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran, you will become the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is going to vary in degree and rank. If a person comes and, mashallah, learns a couple of surahs, what he needs to do for his salah, not understanding the meanings, what he's reciting in salah, not understanding even the proper way to pronounce what he's reciting in salah, this is kind of like a careless attitude towards the Quran, towards that book, that speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is something uncreated. It's a sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is uncreated, ghayr makhluq. This is part of the, you can say, the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that emanate from Him. Another hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in order for us to understand, to encapsulate what kind of fadilah is in store for us, Rasulullah has mentioned that man kharaja fi talab al-ilmi fahuwa fi sabilillahi hatta yarji'a. That whosoever has come out, whoever has made khuruj fi talab al-ilm, so that he may seek knowledge. And when we mean ilm, we don't mean, for example, like math, science, and social studies. In the hadith, Rasulullah mentioned that inna al-ulama'a warathatul anbiya. That ulama, who when we use the word ilm, this refers to the ilm of all those things that the Anbiya brought. And we know Rasulullah wasn't a math teacher, Rasulullah wasn't a physics teacher. Rasulullah came down with the ilm of deen. The reason why I'm mentioning this is sometimes people like to use the fadail and virtues of ilm outside of its scope. When we refer to ilm in terms of the fadail of wherever it is in the Quran and Hadith, it refers to the ilm encapsulated by all of the branches of the ilm of Sharia, all the branches of the ilm of the deen of Islam. So, whosoever comes out in search of ilm, the ilm of deen, then he is considered to be fi sabilillah in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hatta yarji'a, until he doesn't return home. From the moment you step foot outside of your house, or wherever, if you've left from the store, if you've left from work, and your maqsad and your intention and your niyyah is to gain knowledge, you're already in the path of Allah. What does it mean to be in the path of Allah? If a person knows the billah, let's say we have an accident, right? There's a fatal car crash. A person passes away, automatically you become a shaheed. For what? Because your intention was to come learn the ilm of deen, right? So this is a very, very, very high maqam. And to get us to understand what this fi sabilillah is, what does it mean to be in the path of Allah? And another narration, Rasulullah has mentioned, لَغَدْوَةٌ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَوْ رَوْحَةٌ خَيْرٌ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا وَمَا فِيهَا. Right? This ought to give us an understanding that one single moment, like a morning spent, or an evening spent, or a part therein, fi sabilillah, in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, خَيْرٌ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا وَمَا فِيهَا. Better than anything you can imagine existing in the entire world, in the world itself, وَمَا فِيهَا, and anything contained within the world. Everybody else, whatever they might be doing, if they might be earning millions outside in the business marketplace, if they might be earning fame through some other avenues of theirs, if they might be earning whatever the dunya has to offer. Some person is, mashallah, acquiring the education of the dunyawi matters. He's becoming a PhD in rocket science, or he's earning a PhD in the physical sciences or in the medical sciences. But the person who comes out seeking the ilm of deen, the person who is fi sabilillah, better than all of them. In the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is better than anything that you could be doing on the face of the earth. To get us to understand what kind of a maqam ilm has. Imam Sha'bi, rahimahullah, a very famous muhaddith, amongst the mutaqaddimeen of the muhaddithin, to get us an understanding of what the early scholars of Islam had. See, they were Muslims and we are Muslims. They believed in the kalima la ilaha illallah, we believe in the kalima la ilaha illallah. They had the Quran and we have the Quran. They had the hadith of Rasulullah and we have the hadith of Rasulullah. But there's a stark difference between the two of us. They had yaqeen in these words. It penetrated a deep core in the recesses of their heart, and they understood that these simple words that are recited before you, they already pondered over it, that hey, wait a second. If I come out to learn this deen, you're telling me that this is the best thing that I could be doing? That this is the best thing that the world has to offer? He narrates an incident. He mentions that Rahala al-Masruq. Masruq was a very other famous scholar, very famous muhaddith. He says, Rahala Masruq ila al-Basra. Imam Masruq, he traveled towards Basra. He left his hometown, he went on a voyage to go to Basra. He said, fi tafsiri ayatin. What took him out of his home? To find the tafsir of one single ayah. Right? Not many ayats. He wanted to know that there's one particular tabi'i who knows the tafsir of this one ayah. I'm going to leave my house, book my ticket, and go all the way to Basra, just so I can understand the tafsir of one single ayah. So then what happened? فَقِيلَ لَهُ إِنَّ الَّذِي يُفَسِّرُهَا رَحَلَ إِلَى الشَّامِ. So when he reached Basra, he said, the person whom you're looking for, the person who knows the tafsir of this one single ayah, he himself, he has moved on and he's in Sham now. Sham refers to the Levant, which is basically nowadays Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, in that area, Palestine included. So he left Basra, which is Iraq, and he head out for Syria. And we can imagine what kind of travel took place in those times. You have to hire a camel. A camel is very expensive. You have to feed it. The food involved. You have to bring food for yourself. It'll take you months and months traveling in the heat of the desert. And in the dangers of that time, traveling between country lines, just for the sake of one single ayah. Nowadays we have, mashallah, volumes upon volumes of tafsir of ayat, wherein all of their sacrifices are contained, but there's no one to open those books. The books are readily available, mashallah. There's plenty of books here, I'm sure there's a library here available, but who is there to open it? That same tafsir of this ayah, this one person made so much mujahada to travel from his home to Basra, from Basra to Sham. We can find that in probably 5 or 6 different books of tafsir, but none of us even care to open that book. So where's the difference between us and where's the difference between the ulama of the past? Why? What kind of appreciation are we showing for the Quran? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the Quran, Hudan lin-nas, as a guidance to mankind. What have we done to attain that guidance? We expect it to come automatically, that I'll be sleeping in my bed and through osmosis it'll just come through my brain. It doesn't work like that. It takes sacrifice. A person has to spend his time, spend his money, spend his health, spend his wealth, spend everything to acquire it, because this is the falah. This is the success. This is the sa'adat. Right? This is the good fortune that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in store for the mu'mineen. And we have to kind of take a time and introspect within ourselves at how much have I done to learn my own religion. So anyway, it was informed to Imam Masruq rahimahullah that he has traveled on to Sham. So he prepared himself. He had to again reload the camel, take food with him. وَرَحَلَ إِلَى الشَّامِ. And then he went again and he made his trip to Sham حَتَّى عَلِمَ تَفْسِيرَهَا, until he learned the tafsir of that one single ayat, and then he returned home. And this is the sacrifices they made. And that's why when they came back to their respective homes, they became the imams of the people. And the Jummah khutbah, I told you that Umar anhu in Sayyid Muslim, he narrates a hadith that إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَرْفَعُ بِهَذَا kitab, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the barakah, through the virtue of this book, يَرْفَعُ الْقَوْمِ, He will raise one nation, وَيَدَ الْآخَرُونَ, and He will debase others. When they went and they made that sacrifice and they would learn these ayat and they would learn the tafsir of it, when they come back, everybody would have that respect and izzat for them. That mashallah, this person, he is a knowledgeable scholar, let's go and learn from him. And they would sit at their feet, even if they were slaves, even if they were lowly people. Nowadays you could say, for example, if a person, the lowest person we could think of is a guy that cleans a bathroom, cleans a toilet, it's a janitor. The person that is that disrespect, everybody kind of makes fun of him, probably doesn't have a car to his name, he has to walk and take the bus. The lowest person you can think of society. But because such a person will take up time to learn the deen of Islam, will take up time to learn ayat by ayat, verse by verse, there'll come a time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will raise him to the highest level of insaniyat, until he will become the leader of mankind, and everybody will be sitting at his feet. Right? And one thing, this normally happens, what I've noticed myself after being around students the majority of my life, most of the students, especially in our day, they want ilm very quickly. I normally tell the students we live in a microwave age, everything is microwavable. But ilm doesn't come. Ilm is not microwavable, you don't get it like that. It's not that we want to learn everything in one go. It's a whole long life dedication. And this is exactly the same tariqah that the Sahaba, this is the same tariqah that Rasulullah had chosen for the Sahaba. They didn't learn big things. Under the tafsir of ulama Rabbaniyun, Ibn Abbas, he means that Rabbaniyun, those people that are those ulama that are like rasikhin, that are firmly embedded in their ilm, and the ones that are attributed to the Rabb, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, real muttaqi, pious ulama, he said those are the people that learn the small things before they learn the big things. Nowadays, we don't know the basics, not even the basics, we don't even know the introduction to the basics of the Arabic language, but we want to understand these deep meanings of the Holy Quran. How can that happen? Not going to happen. We have to take our time and we have to learn step by step by step. Proceed. This is the logical deduction, logical conclusion. You cannot understand something so beautiful and so comprehensive as the Holy Quran and think that you can take that from a mere English translation. So in the meantime, when we start the tafsir program, I intend to start off and to give you a breakdown, word by word of every single verse of the Holy Quran and all the tafsirs around it. But in order for you to truly understand the beauty and the magnificence of it, I have to teach you the Arabic behind it also. Hopefully you'll cope with me through that also, inshallah. Khair. Another hadith of Rasulullah is mentioned to Abu Dhar Ghifari radiallahu anhu. He mentions, Ya Aba Dhar, لأن تغدو فتعلم آية من كتاب الله خير لك من أن تصلي 100 ركعة. This to give us an understanding of what these halaqat of ilm are. Normally when a person sees somebody making ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, being the most pious person, he's the first one in the saf, first one to come in, the last one to leave. You see, mashallah, a very big sajda mark on the forehead. You see him, he's constantly fasting, always making the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everybody say, well, mashallah, the most pious person I know is this person. But what did Rasulullah mention to Abu Dhar? That, oh, Abu Dhar, listen, that you spend some time learning, if you spend the morning, taghdu means to spend the morning. If you spend a portion of the morning learning one single ayat of the Holy Quran, whether it's through memorization, whether it's learning the tafsir of that ayat, whatever it is, you take one single ayat of the Quran, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ, for example, that you learn this and you take a little bit of time to learn that, it's better for you than performing 100 rak'at of nafil salah. Right? How long is it going to take us to perform 100 rak'ats? And how valuable 100 rak'at is that we know that on the day of Qiyamah, right, one Sahabi passed away. He became a shaheed in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one other Sahabi, he passed away a year later. And some other Sahaba, they saw this, two people in the dream, that what happened. And the Sahabi that passed away a year later, it was said that my stage in Jannah is this high. So they couldn't understand that this one Sahabi became a shaheed. He's a martyr in the path of Allah. He sacrificed his life also. Everything that he had, he sacrificed for the sake of Allah. But this other Sahabi, he didn't become a shaheed. He didn't become a martyr. How come his maqam in stages Jannah is so much higher? So he said that, didn't he spend so much more time, 1 whole more year's worth of salah, so much more sajda, so much more ruku, so much more tilawat of the Quran? So then we get an understanding that, okay, mashallah, if you can make more salah, you get more darajat. Now, one single ayat being valuable to as equal or more than equal than 100 rakat of salah, we can understand that what value there is besides learning in regards to learning Quran. And how much time we need to dedicate? We don't even be lucky to perform 2, 4, 5, 6 rakats nafil salah on a daily basis. But if we should be making it a habit. Every single day I'm going to take out time to learn 1 ayat, 2 ayat. I'm going to sit, I'm going to learn. And this, we don't understand the benefits of it. That's why we don't do it up until now. We've memorized maybe half of a juz or a quarter of a juz, and we've sufficed upon that. This is sufficient for me, yes, enough for me to do my Quran, because we don't know the value of it. Okay? And then Rasulullah mentioned to Abu Dhar, to get us saying, he says, وَأَن تَغْدُوَ فَتَعَلَّمَ بَابًا مِنَ الْعِلْمِ عُمِلَ بِهِ أَوْ لَمْ يُعْمَلْ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنْ أَن تُصَلِّيَ أَلْفَ رَكَعَةٍ تَطَوُّعًا. Now he mentions, okay, mashallah, this is to learn 1 ayat of Quran. He says that you spend a little time in the morning to learn 1 bab, 1 chapter of ilm. 1 bab of ilm, for example, if I start some classes of Arabic, or some discussion of aqidah, or some hadith, and bab they normally use to name a chapter. So you have a chapter of ilm. You make that mujahada, and you learn that chapter of ilm, you revise it, you ask the question from the ustad if you don't understand anything, and you dedicate that time to learn this ilm. Rasulullah mentioned to Abu Dhar that this is better for you than 1,000 nafil rakats. 1,000 nafil rakats. How long does it take us from 1,000 nafil rakats? It'll probably take us 2-3 months. So to learn 1 bab of ilm, spend half an hour to learn a little bit of knowledge is going to be better for you than all of it. One more hadith which is on the taqeed. Rasulullah in a different hadith, he's mentioned that man salaka tariqan, whoever traverses a path, yaltamisu fihi ilma, and his purpose on traversing this path is to seek ilm, to seek knowledge. He goes anywhere, he comes to the masjid, like you guys have come to the masjid now, mashallah, and the sisters upstairs. What took you out? What brought you here? Mashallah, the basketball game is going on, events are going on outside. What was it that brought you here? Seeking ilm. So, Rasulullah mentioned that you have come out seeking that ilm, sahalallahu lahu tariqan ila al-jannah. Already, because of that niyyah, because of that intention to seek ilm, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is already making means and making the path for you towards Jannah easy. Right? Jannat, the hadith mentioned that hujibat al-jannatu bil-makarih. The Jannat, it is hujibat, it is completely covered with makarih, with difficult things. So that means that to earn Jannah is extremely difficult. You have to go against your nafs, you have to make so much mujahada, you have to do so much ibadah to earn your Jannah. You have to refrain from certain things, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you take the path of knowledge, sahalallahu lahu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make that tariqah easy for you towards Jannah. And then he mentions that وَمَجْتَأَ قَوْمٌ فِي بَيْتٍ مِّن بُيُوتِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى يَتْلُونَ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَيَتَدَارَسُونَهُ بَيْنَهُمْ إِلَّا نَزَلَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ السَّكِينَةُ وَغَشِيَتْهُمُ الرَّحْمَةُ وَحَفَّتْهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَذَكَرَ اللَّهُ فِي مَنْ عِنْدَهُ. And Rasulullah mentions about 4 or 5 different virtues and fadail for this. He mentions that there is no qawm or no group of people like we are today that gathers in the masjid. Right? That gathers, the hadith mentions, fi baytin min buyutillah, that gathers in one of the houses from the many houses of Allah. Yatluna kitab Allah. What do we do when we gather? That we recite the Holy Quran, reciting the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making that tilawat. So as a group, we've gathered together to make tilawat of the Holy Quran. Or وَيَتَدَارَسُونَهُ. Thereafter you make dars, you learn. Right? Discussions are taking place. What's the meaning of this verse? What's the background of this verse? What's the sha'n nuzul of this verse? When did this verse come down? What does this verse have to deal with? So understanding all of the ahkam of that verse, illa, except that. Nobody does this except illa nazalat alayhim sakina. Except that sakina. And sakina, the muhaddithin, they go on length to describe what is a sakina. The descension of sakina will take place. Some ulama, they mention that sakina, like Ali radiallahu anhu, he mentions sakina as a special breeze or like a wind that's sent down from the side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that actually has a shakl in the form of a human face. So this breeze comes down, it's like a cool wind. And other ulama say that it's a special tranquility, it's a calming effect, it's a special mercy that descends with the malaika. That when the malaika descend on this group of people, you can feel the peace and serenity and the tranquility in your heart. Others say that it's a type of mercy that comes down, a type of fadl and virtue and mercy that comes down from the side of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's aside from the malaika. Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah, he says that there's no real difference in all these translations. They're all encompassing one and the same thing. That when the sakina descends, you feel this peace in your heart. Allah bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. Allah mentions in the Quran that isn't it with the dhikr of Allah that the hearts find peace, itminan. And who isn't looking for itminan nowadays? Everybody that's outside, whatever it is that they're trying to do, they're looking for itminan. They're looking for peace. They're looking for tranquility. The person who's earning his millions, why is he earning the millions? Why does he want all this money? So that finally he can get that peace and tranquility. We're getting it free of charge here. We don't need to go through some secondary means to get the tranquility. This is our tranquility. Through the malaika coming down and descending. So that's the first thing that happens. Sakina comes down. Then what's the mention of that? وَغَشْيَتْهُمُ الرَّحْمَةِ. That the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, غَشْيَتْهُمْ, it completely engulfs them, it completely immerses them in the mercy of Allah. A person committed some sin last night, he comes inside and sits in the majlis of dust. That mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by pure barakah of him being in this majlis, that mercy will come in and completely engulf him. A person starts, that sincerity, that ikhlas comes in. By virtue of sitting here, inshallah, even the sins will be forgiven as well. وَحَفَتْهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. What else happens? The malaika come, they throng around this majlis. We can't see them, but the malaika come down and they throng around one another. And another hadith Rasulullah has mentioned that they will encompass their wings and that يَرْكَبُ بَعْضُهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. Some of them will be rising upon the others. They'll be riding upon the others up until they reach the sky of the heavens. And the malaika, what other job do they have than to go around finding the people making the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reciting the Holy Quran of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So especially in this day and age, right, living here, who's out there remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Who's out there studying Quran? Everybody is completely going with the grain, moving away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, moving away from the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, moving away from the deen. And there's a small handful of people learning the Quran. What we need to understand is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He values this, He cherishes this. Every single one by name at this moment in time. The hadith goes on to mention that وَذَكَرَهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي مَنْ إِنَّهُ. That these same people, every single person that's seated here by name, Allah mentions that, yes, Brother Muhammad is here, Brother Sibratullah is here, right? All the brothers that are here by name specifically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself at this moment in time is taking each one of our names and on a register. Right, to get an understanding that how close Allah is to us and how He values us. I don't want to take too much time on the fadail and the virtues, going more into actual dars and tadris. There's certain shara'it, there's certain conditions for learning. Right? Once we make up our mind that, I definitely have to take out time to learn, there's some shara'it. Right? And the very most important shart, right, is our niyat, our intention. If this is corrupt, then every action based upon that will be corrupt as well. This is the foundation upon which the building rests. If the foundation is corrupt, the walls are just going to fall down. Very famous hadith of Rasulullah mentioned by Umar radiallahu anhu, that Rasulullah mentioned that إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِمَّا نَوَى. That actions are based solely upon their intentions, and a person will only get what he intended. The hadith goes on to mention that فَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. And then In the beginning, Rasulullah lays down the usul and the principle that this is how things are. In the book of Allah, everything is based upon your niyyah and your intention. Then Rasulullah gives a more specific, detailed understanding of how to understand this hadith. So Rasulullah mentions, Man kanat hijratuhu ila Allahi wa Rasuli. And this is specific to the mu'mineen of that time. It doesn't really refer to us nowadays. The biggest act of ibadah that a person could have done in those days was hijrah. That was the biggest sacrifice for the muhajirun, that you leave your family, you leave your wealth, you leave behind all of your property for the sake of Allah. You go become a complete faqir, and you're doing this for the sake of Allah. Can there be a bigger test of a person's iman than that? Right? So then Rasulullah says that, okay, whoever had that niyyah to do that hijrah for the sake of Allah, then his hijrah was for the sake of Allah, he's going to get the reward for it. But وَمَنْ كَانَتْ هِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى الدُّنْيَا يُصِيبُهَا أَوْ امْرَأَةٍ يَنْكَحُهَا فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. That this act of ibadah outwardly, which is so great, that muhajirun were known to be like the cream of the crop amongst the Sahaba, that anybody who took this act of ibadah as pure as hijrat, but he used that with a false intention and niyyat, that a person made the hijrat, but his hijrat was lidunya, to acquire anything, either whether it be the wealth, whether it be made in vain, and in Rasulullah mentions, even if it's a woman to get married to. A person made hijrats, outwardly he's making hijrat with everybody else, yes, mashallah, muhajir also, but his intention was to get married in Medina Munawwara. Then Rasulullah mentions that فَمَنْ كَانَ الدُّنْيَا يُصِيبُهَا وَالْمَرْأَةُ يَتَزَوَّجُهَا فَهِجْرَتُهُ إِلَى مَا هَاجَرَ إِلَيْهِ. And his hijrat is for whatever he intended. He's got no reward in the store of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the niyyat is the foundation. And Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah and many ulama, Abu Dawood rahimahullah, they mentioned that this hadith itself is 1/3 of ilm, and others have mentioned that it's 1/3 of your deen, it's 1/3 of your religion. Okay? And I don't want to go to the details. One other hadith that Rasulullah mentioned, that on the day of Qiyamah there's going to be 3 people that is going to be resurrected. And one of the first people to be resurrected is going to be a mujahid, a person who had sacrificed his wealth, his time, his life, fighting in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala up until he becomes martyr. And then this person will be raised before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the hadith mentions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to make him recognize all of the bounties that Allah bestowed upon him. You'll recognize that, mashallah, didn't I give you health? Didn't I give you a strong body? Didn't I give you eyes to see with? Didn't I give you a hand to fight with? Didn't I give you legs? All of these different bounties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. And then that person, he's going to recognize it. Oh Allah, yes indeed, you have blessed me with so much richness, right, that we normally take for granted. Right? Imagine tomorrow, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has to take our eyesight. And all of us, we don't make shukr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as we ought to. Imagine tomorrow something happens, a small little nerve in the back of your eye, if it gets pinched and you become blind, how difficult life will become. If you're married, your wife is going to have to do all of the work for you. You can't go to work. Somebody's going to have to lead you around from the bathroom to this place to that place. It's going to be hard for you to come to the masjid. You can't see anything anymore. One small ni'mah like that. And this can happen. A friend of mine, when I was studying in South Africa, when he started studying, he put a lot of pressure on his brain. He used to sleep very late at night, not get enough rest, not get enough nutrition. And the doctor mentioned that because he put so much strain on his brain, there was one small little nerve behind his eye that became, not pinched, but something happened to it, and because of that he became blind. He couldn't see that. Very easy for us to happen. One small little knock on the side, and your retina, something happens, your eyes become completely blind. So it's very easy. But anyway, the mujahid, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell him all of the an'am and the blessings that he bestowed upon him, and he will agree that, yes, Ya Allah, you've given me all these things. Then Allah will question him, that what have you done for the sake of my deen? After having given all of this, what have you done for my sake? So then the person will come out and he'll say that, oh Allah, I fought in your path, I went out and I sacrificed everything, I spent my wealth in buying the armor, I went and I bought this and I got the horse ready, and I sacrificed my time, I left my family behind, and I fought in your path up until I sacrificed my life and I became a shaheed. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, kadabta. You're lying. You're lying. You didn't do it for my sake. You just did it so you could be called a brave person. And the facade of the niyyat. Outwardly, he did all those things. Who knows how painful it was when he got those wounds on his body. It's the sword coming, the arrows coming, how difficult it is fighting the hand-to-hand combat for hours on end. But the niyyat was insane. The main pinnacle, all the mujahid that was there, everything was there, except people could call him something. The second person that we raised up is a person who was an alim ad-din and a qari of the Quran. So the same thing will happen, that he'll be resurrected and they'll ask him, Allah will tell him, didn't I give you this bounty? Didn't I give you that bounty? I gave you eyes so you could read my Quran. I gave you a brain so marvelous that no computer can match that brain with such a hard drive that they can't even understand. I gave you the hand to write with. I gave you wealth to purchase all these books. I made it happen that there was teachers to teach you. So the person will accept it. Yes, oh Allah, you did bless me with all these bounties. Then Allah will ask him, what have you done for my deen? What have you done for my sake? Then he will make the same claim that, oh Allah, day in and day night, I didn't rest until I recited the Quran to the people, until I taught the people this and I taught the people that, and I made my whole life Quran and sacrifice for you. And Allah will say, kadhabta, and you're lying. You didn't do it for my sake. Your need wasn't sincere. You did it so that people could call you a qari, so that people could call you an alim ad-din, so that people could respect you as a person who has knowledge. Again, coming back to the basic foundation of need. So before starting, all of us here, we should work on this. And why am I studying? Why am I coming to learn something? Is it so that I can get into debate with somebody else and show them that I'm more knowledgeable? Is it because I want to be known as a scholar? Is it because I want to get a name for myself? Is it because I want to earn some... nowadays, a very big thing that most of the people that want to come to learn is because they want to earn the money that you get for translating Arabic language or whatever it is. So they're doing it for the monetary gain. $100,000, $200,000 a year, mashallah, you can go and start translating. And then you earn life of luxury, you can say. But you're not going to get any reward for that. On the opposite side, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take you to task for that on the day of Qiyamah. And it's mentioned that different riwayat that these three people are the very first three people. The third person is going to be the hadith that mentions a person who spends his money for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he doesn't end up show that these three people are going to be the first people thrown in the fire of Jannah. Very first people to be thrown in the fire of Jannah. Outwardly doing all the acts of khair, but what was it? Just the niyyah. So you understand how important it is to constantly reflect, why am I doing this? Before you start off doing the action, just ask yourself, why am I doing this? And be honest with yourself. There's nobody else hearing your own nafs speaking to itself. So just speak to yourself, why am I doing this? If I do it for the sake of Allah and His Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I'm going to get all the reward and ajr and akhirat. If I do it for some other reason, Allah knows best what's going to happen to me. During the middle of the classes, you should also recheck your intention at the end of it also. Always keep up with it, because the shaitan, he knows that this is where I can get him, and if he ruins this just a little bit, everything falters. Anyway, time is short, let's continue. Now, before starting the actual tafsir of the Quran, we need to get an understanding of certain basic principles. So what I've decided to do is that in the upcoming weeks, coupled with the tafsir of the Quran, when we start off, inshallah, I'm going to dedicate a certain portion of time known as ulum al-Quran. Ulum al-Quran are the sciences of the Holy Quran. That's a completely separate field. You have ulum al-Quran, Imam Suyuti rahimahullah has written a beautiful book, Al-Itqan fi ulum al-Quran, so I'll make reference to that quite a bit. Mufty Uthmani, Hafidhahullah, he's got a beautiful book in English called Quranic Sciences. There's many books written on the subject, right? Talking about the various sciences of the Quran itself. The very first thing to understand is actually the name of Quran. Right? Most of the people start off with this, that we're talking about the Holy Quran. What is this Quran? What is this? What do we mean when we say Quran? Where does this title come from? And various ulama, they've stated, like Allama Abul Ma'ali rahimahullah, a famous scholar of the 5th century Hijri, he wrote a book called Mushkilat al-Quran, all the difficult concepts of the Holy Quran. In there he enumerates 55 different names of the Quran. That the Quran has got 55 different names that it's called by. Other ulama that came after him, they included more. They say that there's approximately 90 different names of the Quran. But these are more like we can say the sifat, or the characteristics, or the titles of the Quran. The Quran actually has 5 proper names. 5 proper names, like the actual name of the Quran. And this is from the Holy Quran itself. The first one is Al-Quran. And where does Al-Quran come from? In Arabic, inshallah, if Allah gives you the tawfiq to actually study the Arabic language, you know that the Arabic language is based on a root letter system. And that all the meanings of the words are based from certain root letters. So Quran, it's what we call a verbal noun. In Arabic, they call it a masdar, or a root noun. And the root noun is derived from three base letters of qaf, ra, and hamza. Qara'a. Qara'a yaqra'u. In verb form, they normally do this. They call this thing a sarf as-saghir. It's a paradigm of all the root letters. So qara'a yaqra'u, in the initial days of the Arabic language, before it took on a second meaning, it meant to gather or to collect. Qara'a, to collect something. Right? Later on, as the Arabic, normally all languages, they start going through this transition. Later on, they begin to use this to refer to reading. Qara'a yaqra'u took on the meaning of to read. Why? Because basically, when you're doing the gathering, it's a gathering of various letters and words in a sentence that gives a meaning. So that's how it comes up to know that qara'a, reading, is stemmed forth from collecting and gathering. So Qur'an, the masdar means, if we translate it, the recitation. But some ulama they say no. In depth grammar, they say that the masdar, this root noun, very often is used to refer to its maf'ul sigha. What's a maf'ul sigha? That which is carried out, that which is done. So then they say Qur'an is in the meaning of maqru, something which is maqru, and something which is recited. And what does this mean? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already informed us that this Qur'an is going to be something that will be recited, and it's the most recited book in the world today. It's going to be something maqru. What the kuffar at that time tried to do, they tried to get rid of this Qur'an, that don't listen to this messenger, don't listen to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's a magician, he's a soothsayer, he's a lunatic, he's that. They try to get people to not listen to Qur'an and to not even recite it. When Abu Bakr used to recite the Qur'an in his backyard, in his house, the people used to come and they used to say that we have to get him to stop because it's very mesmerizing. We can't allow him to stop. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, through the very name of the Qur'an itself, He says, no, this is going to be something maqru, this is going to be something recited from this day until the very last days, inshallah. So that's Qur'an. That's name number one. It has four other names. It's name number two. Okay, actually, let me give you the ayat also. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Shahr Ramadan alladhi unzila fihi al-Qur'an. So that's where that ayat, you come to get the name Qur'an. The next name is Al-Furqan. The Holy Qur'an is Al-Furqan. What does the Furqan mean? What huruf this come from? Fa, Ra, and Qaf. What is this? Farq, Farqa, Yufarriq, Tafriq, Firqa, Fariq, Umar, Al-Faruq. All the same base letters. So Farqa, Yufarriq, or means to separate. Right? So Al-Furqan means that which, in English they call it the criterion. That which separates between truth and falsehood. That which separates between haqq and batil. So the Quran is Al-Furqan because everybody that had a difference of opinion, anybody who thought, for example, the Christians thought that Isa was slain or that he is part of the Godship and the Trinity, the Quran came in and it made a tafriq of it. No, you're claiming this to be the haqq, that's batil, this is the haqq. Probably give some time for those. Normally in the class time I like to have interaction. So what we can do is that we'll give some time if anybody needs to make wudu, can make wudu. If anybody has like certain questions they'd like to ask, we can take questions. I don't like this kind of like a formal lecture thing. It gets very boring. Everybody gets tired, gets sleepy. And I like to see people taking notes. I only saw a couple people taking notes. But inshallah, as we go on, inshallah, also in the subsequent classes, if everybody can bring a copy of the Quran also. And there's various copies of the Quran that you can get. There's one type that actually has a margin, an area where you can take notes on the side. It takes a page of the Quran, and on the side, there's a place where you can take your marginal notes. Because otherwise, we're just here for entertainment. Or we're actually here to learn, or we're actually just here for entertainment. So hopefully, inshallah, in the subsequent, especially probably from next week or the week thereafter, probably no, from next week, when we start line by line transition of the Quran and tafsir of it, start taking notes of it, inshallah. The ulama have mentioned, the muhaddithin have mentioned this very statement that I always reiterate to my students, that qayyidul ilma bil kitaba. Qayyidul ilma bil kitaba, that capture ilm through writing. Otherwise the ilm will go. MashaAllah, today I remember what the ustad said, or I remember what the teacher said today, but 2 weeks time from now when you ask a person and then you start scratching your head. I think it's something like this. I think it meant something like, I don't know, to separate people. And so you forget it. If I ask you, inshallah, 2 weeks from now, I'll ask some of the students, what's qara'a yaqra'u, what's